Hey, fourth graders, it's Mrs. Ramsey back to read The Someday Birds by Sally J. Pla. Yesterday, we learned more about how Ludmila knew Charlie's dad and how Amar and her dad were related. And we learned a lot about Ludmila and the relationship she had with her brother. And they hadn't talked in a couple of years, and Ludmila seems to be um, kind of a sad girl, and she'd grown up not in the best way in foster homes. So here's chapter 34, and it starts with a quote by Tiberias Shaw, PhD. There are things I could show you that would help you soar through life like a bird on freer wings. If you could only sit where I sit, you would go forth renewed, convinced this difficult and often tragic world holds infinite powers of life regeneration. There's a lot to think about as we cruise along the highway. Ludmila lost her dad, then her grandfather, then her mom, then her brother, and had to go a whole other country and learn the language and move around between a whole bunch of foster families. No wonder she had a rough time growing up. And Amar wanted to take care of her, but he got stuck in a tough military school far away. Once, Davis told me Amar meant to love in Spanish. Maybe his name should have meant to fight. I think about how part of Amar's job was to drive Dad. Does Ludmila blame Dad? Because if Amar hadn't been his driver, maybe he'd be alive. The car is silent. Even Tiberias is quiet, a warm, sleepy lump in his blanket nest at my feet. Indiana passes in a blur of cornfields, soy fields, cornfields, soy fields. We are all lost in thought. Davis breaks our silence. I can't stop thinking about it, Ludmila. How lucky you are that you've had a brother like that, she says softly. Ludmila says, Look around you, little girl. I had one brother. You have three. Someday you realize how lucky you are. Davis rolls her eyes. These three? Hey, Joel and Jake say at the same time. Davis turns to them and smiles. Still, she says, I can't stop thinking about your story, Ludmila. You know ours. You still haven't finished telling us yours. Ludmila breathes in and then exhales slowly. Are you sure you want to hear? It's not pretty. We are all incredibly quiet. The only sound is the hum of the road, the small rattle of old Bessie's loose parts, and then, because we've all nodded yes, Ludmila's deep, husky voice with its strong accent. Sarajevo, Ludmila announces quietly. Imagine us, hungry and tired and fearful in our apartment building, waiting out the siege. Imagine. This is the moment that my mother goes into labor. Her pain started early morning. I remember lifting up a corner flap of cardboard, just a small triangle off the front room window to look out. Even though I wasn't allowed to do that, outside the glass, all was black. The city was silent all around us. There was a feeling of being in a giant, dark closet. The trees in the park across the street had been cut down for firewood, so no birds were around to chirp at us or greet the sun. No songs that day, not even bird song. Many people already had abandoned the city, gotten out. In our apartment building, only a handful of us were left, including old Mrs. Zelinka on the floor above. My mother, she stood moaning, doubled over in that cold, dark kitchen. Go upstairs, Mama told us. I want you two to stay with Mrs. Zelinka until I come back. I need to go to the maternity hospital. But Amar held me back. He didn't like old Mrs. Zelinka, who was cranky and smelled like garlic and cats. So we only pretended to go upstairs. On the landing, Amar said, We're going to secretly follow Mama. We're going to protect her. We stayed 2 blocks back, but there was no fear of being spotted. Mama was too absorbed in her pains and in waddling as swiftly as she could through the empty, dangerous streets. Every so often she would stop and hold on to the side of the building to catch her breath. She was so intent, she never looked back to spot us. Once, a big, gruff man with a rifle stopped her, and our hearts stopped with her. But Mama said something to him, Lord knows what, and he let her pass. We waited until he turned down a side street, then ran as fast as we could to catch up. I remember the feeling of my feet flying, driven by fear that we'd lose track of her. At the maternity hospital, we waited outside as they took Mama in. Amar had it all figured out. They'll take Mama upstairs, he said, and then we'll sneak into the waiting room. My heart was pounding like a drum through it all. We stayed outside for what seemed like hours. We peeped in the clinic doorway once, then leaped away quickly. Mama was still in that waiting room, waiting to sign in. No way would we go in there yet. The room was full of nervous mothers and families. If we kept hanging around, Mama would spot us and she would be furious. An orderly at the door had already been giving us looks. Amar had an idea. My friend's family runs a cafe a few streets over. Let's find it and wait there for a while. And so we wandered off, a separation we thought would last only a short while. But of course, it lasted forever. Ludmila stops for a moment. We wait. We are all on the edge of our seats. I lift Tiberias onto my lap and start stroking him, soothing him, even though he's perfectly fine and doesn't need it. Amar and I, we wandered off, looking for the cafe, you see, Ludmila goes on. And that's when the first shell hit. Big explosion, noise, heat, fear. We ran back. Amar pulled me along. From the end of the block, we could see that the hospital was on fire. It was chaos, a nightmare, people screaming for help. Ludmila's voice cuts out. She takes a giant, deep breath, and then she takes her hands off the steering wheel and shouts to no one in particular, "Who bombs a maternity hospital?" We just shake our heads. Amar, though, he was strong. He grabbed me and held me back there on the sidewalk, looking down the street at this disaster. "Stop crying," he said. "We need to go back there and help." And so we did. I don't know how we did it, but we helped people out of the building. Amar carried out squalling little newborn baby wrapped in a smoking, scorched blanket. The baby was safe and healthy. A nurse told me to take care of it in a little garden down the street. Ambulances and fire trucks and sirens and noise filled every corner of the air, and still the sound of snipers, of shots echoing off the buildings, those beautiful pockmarked crumbling stone buildings. I remember I wanted to just curl in a ball and go to sleep, but I had to hold that little baby. Other people came in and out. People were burned. The nurses worked nonstop. It felt like hours, like days passed with me standing there holding that baby. And then Amar came over and yelled at me to run. The fire was spreading. We weren't safe. At that point, a nurse took the baby from me. We all ran and ran until my side was on fire, my breath fire, everything fire, burning from my insides to the streets themselves, to the whole world. Ludmila stops talking. We're seeing signs to Cleveland. The outside, real, normal world comes back into focus. Highway, greenery, sunshine, trees, calm. The fiery streets of Sarajevo fade. Ludmila's story has seemed so real. "Go on," Davis whispers. "Go on. What happened next?" Not sure I want to know, but Ludmila goes on. "Well, so I was running, being dragged along by Amar, when it started to dawn on me what he'd already knew about Mama. Of all the ladies who'd been saved, well, our Mama had never come out of the hospital door. She was most certainly gone. We ran like crazies. We never stopped. Finally, we spied a rickety old apartment building in a part of town we'd never seen, with a half-open alleyway door. We slipped inside. It led down into the cellar, in the dark, quivering and shaking. We thought finally we could break down and cry. Finally, we were alone. But strange shadows started moving in the corner of the cellar. I screamed. The shadows got bigger, then changed into the figures of a middle-aged couple. The man wore a clean white shirt and a Jewish yarmulke, I don't know if I'm saying that right, cap on the back of his head. The woman was shaking almost as much as me, but she had warm, strong arms, and she opened them wide and put them around the two of us, and she hugged us tightly. She put an apple in my hand. I hadn't had an apple in over a year. Ludmila wipes her eyes. Thank God for them, this couple. They saved us, the Leibowitzes. We lived with them and shared their food for about a month. They were wonderfully kind, helped us write to find our relatives, but nothing. No one responded. They were journalists working with foreign media to cover the war. They wrote a news story that appeared all over Europe about two heroic Muslim kids who helped save babies at the bombed maternity hospital, even after their own mother was killed. The story got picked up by the international press, and when the UK started taking refugees out, the Leibowitzes made sure we were on one of the first planes out. So, there are a few reasons I'm here today. Because Mama didn't want us at the maternity hospital. Because Amar had a cool head and knew what to do, Ludmila says. And because we chanced upon the door to the Leibowitzes' cellar. They were so kind. Ludmila stares out at the highway, not seeing it all. She smiles. That's what my brother Amar said to me that first night in the cellar when we knew we'd found safety. Amar patted me on the shoulder and he said, See, Mila, there is good everywhere. No matter how bad things are, it's always possible to find a bit of good. Chapter 35. Another quote from Tiberias Shaw. The beady-eyed black crow drops the oyster he has stolen on the pavement. It doesn't work, so he tries something completely different. He puts it on the road for a car to run over and crack. How smart he is! How persistent! This bird is strong. He is never afraid to try new approaches. There are only 3 birds left to find from Dad's and my original Someday Birds list. Turkey vulture, sandhill crane, Carolina parakeet. The farther we get from the Midwest, the chancier it is to spot a sandhill crane. If we had driven through Nebraska, we'd have had a good chance because they get something like 500,000 cranes through there every spring. They even have a whole festival about it from what I've read. But we're long past Nebraska. We spent the night at an Ohio campground and we're all ready to Amish Country in Pennsylvania. I don't care one way or the other about visiting the Amish, but I do know there are lots of woods and fields in Pennsylvania, so I have everyone on the lookout for vultures. I don't know, Charlie, says Davis. Aren't they pretty reclusive? You only see them if there's carrion around. You know, dead meat. Hey, I got one. Why do vultures like small suitcases? Asked Joel. Because they're like carrion. Get it? Carry on. Davis says, tell another joke that bad, and you'll be the dead meat. We're 2 hours into Pennsylvania on I-80, bearing down on Virginia on the East Coast soon enough, with no, number 1, vultures, or 2 sandhill cranes spotted so far, not to mention no, number 3, extinct parakeets. The closer we get to the towns, the harder it'll be to find Dad's Someday birds, and that's where we're headed, a typical Amish town to stop for the night. When we pull off the highway, we end up stuck behind a horse and buggy. It's all painted black, and the man driving it has a flat-topped straw hat and a long beard. He's going really slow, and Ludmila is afraid to pass him. So we just crawl along, clippity-clop, until we get to the main street. It's interesting going slow, even though Davis is groaning and smacking her head. I like it. It's more interesting when the trees stop being a blur and turn back into individual trees. We park and tumble out of Old Bessie, sighing and stretching. We walk Tiberias up and down a sidewalk to feel our legs again. We window shop. There's a display of Pennsylvania Dutch hexes, round discs of colorful designs. It says that the hearts in the design stand for love, the tulips for faith, and the birds are called distelfink or goldfinches, and they are supposed to bring good luck. Tiberias is not interested in hexes, distelfink, or stores. Instead, he's fascinated by horse poop. There's a whole disgusting ton of it in the street. I have to keep yanking his leash to get him back up on the curb. I have to yank gently, or he'll fall over, due to his one back leg, and the last thing we need is Tiberias falling into a pile of horse poop. The people walking around here are all either touristy looking or Amish looking. They wear white caps and long dresses, or those flat-topped hats and beards without mustaches, and plain dark work clothes. The clothing is simple and functional, which I like, but still they have too many buttons. Give me a stretch waist shorts and a t-shirt any day of the week, please. As usual, Joe and Jake are starving. Starving! So we turn into the first diner to see. All the waitresses are dressed Amish. Ours has a name tag that says Anna, and she doesn't look any older than Davis. Her hair is all combed tightly back into her white cap and held in place with metal hairpins that look horribly painful. When she turns her head, I see a small pinprick on the side of her nose, like she used to have a nose earring there. Well, that looks painful too. Anna makes a fuss over how cute Tiberias is. Such an adorable little wee face, yeah? But he gets around just fine now, doesn't he? Poor thing, she says. For dessert, Ludmila orders us all something called shoe fly pie, which Anna reassures me doesn't really have flies in it. Davis forces me to try a crumb. It's kind of brown sugary. I reject it on principle. After we eat, Ludmila asks Anna if she knows of a place a small RV could set up for the night. Well, we have a campsite at our farm. You'd be welcome if thou wish. There's a hookup, water pump, and picnic table by our fence. It's not far at all, she says, smiling. But I'll warn you, it may be a bit crazy later on, account of a party we young folk are having. After the food and more walking, we get back in the camper. We turn off the main road and follow Anna's directions, and about 10 minutes out of town, just like she said, a little farm appears. Cornfields, white farmhouse, red barn with one of those hexes on it, with distelfink. We nervously unhook the gate and drive in. She said to put a few dollars in the mailbox. If thou would be so moved. So we do. Right where she said, by the far fence, is a campsite with a picnic table and water pump, and an old-fashioned wooden outhouse with a small cutout of a star carved into the door. I laugh because it's so true. This is definitely a one-star operation. The minute we open the camper door, Tiberias darts right past me, right into the huge cornfield. Get him out of there, I yelled at Joel. He'll get lost. He'll get ticks. Chill out, says Joel. There's nothing to hurt him out here. Let him stretch his legs. We can hear him yipping happily, barking along the corn rows. He must have disturbed some big black crows. Two of them flutter up and circle the air above us, cawing and complaining. Then a third shoots up. It has a long rat tail curling down from its beak. It takes off like a shot toward a distant stand of trees, pumping its wings like crazy. The other crows have to chase it, squawking protests. Ew, Davis says. Lots of ewy things. Yes, I say, looking at the outhouse. Tiberias the dog comes bursting back through the soft green corn stalks, happily panting, and barks at my feet. I'm not picking you up until somebody checks you over for ticks, I tell him. Why don't you do it yourself, Charlie? Davis asks. No way. I'm not going to go near that. It's dusk when we all sit around, eating sandwiches at the splintery picnic table. The twins have a stash of candy they got in one of the shops today, which they're planning to devour for dessert. How come the bin said penny candy, but everything cost $1? Joel asks. Because it's a cruel, deceptive world, Davis says. Well, this is nice, Ludmila says, while we munch stale sandwiches and slap mosquitoes. It isn't totally nice. Finally, we go inside old Bessie and call it a night. I crawl in my bunk and make a blanket nest for Tiberias at my feet as usual. But I am so sick of this thin blue mattress. The top sheet is always slipping off, so my face gets sweaty from sleeping directly on the disgusting, moldy blue plastic. And don't get me wrong, I love Tiberias, but he gives me cramps in my legs by hogging the whole bottom half of this stupid bed every night. Davis is across from me, reading with a flashlight. She clicks it off and says goodnight. I toss and turn, toss. It doesn't seem long before the muffled bass thump of a rap song wakes me up. I crack open my window. The beat's so low, it hurts my ears. Faint laughter floats across the field and the buzzy sound of lots of people talking. It's that young folk party that the waitress Anna was talking about. Rap music, like nose piercing, doesn't seem very Amish to me. I slide my legs slowly up away from the dog. Tiberias sighs and twitches one back paw like he's dreaming about running. The empty hip joint also moves. It's so funny when he does this. I wonder if he has two legs in his dreams. It's amazing the things we are capable of in our dreams. If only we could harness that power when we wake. Tiberias Shaw. More laughter and voices float across the field outside my window. Everyone else is still snoring, but I give up on sleeping. Come on, beast, I tell Tiberias. He yawns and licks my hand when I clip on his leash, as if to say, really? A walk is great, but does it have to be now? I grab a flashlight just in case, and together we creep out the RV door. Slightly uphill, a long distance across the field, a huge crowd of kids is milling around under the light on the big red barn. I can't make out any Amish caps or dresses or suspenders on anyone. No, it's sort of a modern, smoky, drinky, noisy party that Dad would probably kill Davis for going to. Boys are whooping and girls are laughing and dancing in small groups. Just then, as I'm staring across the field, there's a super loud crack. The music suddenly cuts out. There's the sound of commotion of some people arguing. I walk Tiberias up a little closer to see what's going on, and then there's the waitress, Anna, running toward me. Oh my gosh, are you okay? She shouts, panting. Yes, I say. Two stupid boys just shot a rifle right across the field at you. They said they saw a deer. When I told them we had a family and a camper staying right over there at the clearing, they could have killed thee. She is breathless, her face pale in the darkness. I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh. Well, if you're okay, I have to. She turns on her heels and starts running back in the opposite direction to the barn. I watch her rejoin the group and wave her arms around, angry. It looks like Anna is throwing everybody out. I wonder where her parents are. I hear car doors start to slam, then a line of headlights roar over the field as vehicles turn slowly toward the lane. And in the flash of one of those headlights, as I'm walking back to the camper, I notice something. An indentation in a corn row about 10 feet in. Do I dare move closer to see what it is? Those boys with the rifle didn't hit me, but they did hit something. The rump of the poor deer twitches, then stills. I freeze and watch and wait. It doesn't move. It's dead, but dead. There is nothing I can do to save it or help it. I think of Dad telling us about the circle of life. When I was 5 and our cat Chigger died, he was trying to make us feel better, but he was more upset than us kids. Chigger was mean and only ever spat at us from under the couch, so we didn't even like him. But he had been Mom's cat. I remember looking at this poor dead deer in the cornstalks that day had buried Chigger. It was out near the canyon, and he had dug for a long time. He had dug deep. When he came back in, Dad had said, I just wanted to make sure the coyotes and the big old vultures leave that poor guy alone. Come on, I tell Tiberias, and it's almost dawn. Let's go get a sweater and a blanket, and we're coming back here to wait. I have an idea. I sense dawn before it comes. In a few minutes, a haze of blue-gray hits my eyelids. Things turn from gray shadows into surreal color, lightening by dim degrees. Across the field, a thin yellow lip of sun peeps out until I can just barely, finally make out the outline of the poor, shot-dead deer. It is a lifeless lump, flattening the cornstalks about 15 feet away from where Tiberias and I are hidden. Tiberias snuggles in closer. Just a while longer, I whisper. It's almost better, sleeping out here in this cozy blanket, than it was in the camper on the sticky blue mattress, right? Sure smells better. He turns around 3 times and heaves into my side to sleep some more. Meanwhile, I scan the sky, and finally, amazingly, 2 black pinpoints appear against the pre-dawn gray. It must be crows. I hold my breath. I wait. And yes, the pinpoints grow into 2 great hulking shapes that pass over, blackening the sky above me. Then they wheel and spiral down just beyond the dead deer. I want to do silent fist pumps, but I stay tight, frozen, a watching statue. The birds are ink black with bright red, bumpy, fleshy heads and tight, spiky neck ruffs. They look around, heads bobbing, checking out the neighborhood. Tiberias whimpers. I hold his snout shut and hug him tighter to my chest. I can't see them very well, so I shift just a bit over to the right, and the thicket of cornstalks aligns better into perfect rows, straight as an arrow. There they are, 2 turkey vultures strutting around the dead deer, or as they would call it, breakfast. They arrange themselves behind its belly. The deer's back is to me. Its hind leg is bobbing now from some movement that vultures are making. I definitely don't want to know any more details than that. Vultures are kind of like nature's trash removal workers, and their digestive tracts actually kill off dangerous bacteria and illness-causing germs, so vulture poop comes out totally sterile. In goes bacteria-filled, stinky dead meat. Out comes completely clean, sterile vulture poop. Talk about efficiency. You have to respect that. Another fun fact, they poop all over their own legs to cool off. This Pennsylvania morning's vultures are like a gift, a gross gift. I never thought I'd really get to see them. I never thought I'd be able to cross those birds off my list. Tiberias and I creep away and head back to the camper where I brush off all the hay, grass, and dirt and make extra sure the both of us are tick-free. The others are just waking up. Tiberias scarfs down his kibble breakfast on the picnic table bench. As for me, after seeing those vultures at work, I'm not up for breakfast. In fact, I think I might go vegetarian. And that's where we're going to stop today. I'll see you guys next time. Happy Earth Day. Bye.